I stood in the living room holding 2 black trash bags filled with everything I owned. My father wouldn't look at me. He just kept pointing toward the door, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. I was 17 years old, and I had no idea what I had done wrong. "Dad, please," I begged. "Just tell me why. What did I do?" He shook his head. "You need to leave, Nathan. Tonight." My stepmother, Beverly, stood in the doorway to the kitchen, arms crossed, watching me with something that looked almost like satisfaction. She didn't say a word, but her lips curved into the smallest smirk. My mother had died 3 years earlier, and Beverly had moved in less than a year after the funeral. From that moment, everything changed. Where am I supposed to go? I asked, my voice cracking. "Your Aunt Diane will take you," my father said flatly. "She's expecting you." I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. But something in his eyes told me it was useless. As I walked toward the door, I glanced back one last time. Beverly was typing something on her phone, her fingers moving fast, her face lit by the screen. She looked up and met my eyes, and that smirk grew wider. "My name is Nathan Cooper. I'm 38 years old now, and I live in Portland, Oregon. But back then, I was just a confused teenager being driven across town to my aunt's cramped apartment with no explanation and no hope." If you're listening to this story, please subscribe to this channel for more fascinating stories like this one. You won't believe what I discovered years later. Aunt Diane wasn't cruel, but she made it clear I was a burden. She worked 2 jobs and had barely enough space for herself. I slept on a couch that smelled like cigarettes and tried to finish my senior year of high school while dodging questions about why I wasn't living at home anymore. Then the rumors started. At first, it was just whispers in the hallways. Then someone confronted me directly. "I heard you stole money from your dad's business," a classmate said. "Is that why he kicked you out?" I froze. I had never stolen anything in my life. But the rumor spread like wildfire, and suddenly everyone believed I was a thief. Teachers looked at me differently. Friends stopped calling. I became invisible. I didn't understand where the rumor came from until I overheard Aunt Diane on the phone one night. She was talking to another relative, someone I didn't recognize by voice. "I don't know what Nathan did," she said quietly, "but his father told everyone he was unstable. Said the boy needed help but refused to get it." Unstable. The word hit me like a punch. My father had told people I was mentally unstable. That's why no one believed me when I denied the theft accusations. That's why everyone treated me like I was dangerous. I finished high school barely, moved out as soon as I could, and tried to build a life on my own. I worked construction jobs, saved every dollar, and avoided anything that reminded me of my father. But I couldn't stop myself from checking on them online. They were thriving. New house in the suburbs. New cars. My younger brother, Tyler, enrolled in an expensive private school. Family photos on social media showed smiling faces and vacation trips. There was no mention of me. It was like I had been erased. Then I noticed something strange. In one photo, Beverly was standing next to my father at some company event. The caption mentioned her as co-owner of Cooper Industries. Co-owner. My father had built that company from nothing, and now Beverly's name was on it. I stared at the screen for a long time, trying to make sense of it. How had she gotten so much power so quickly? I told myself it didn't matter. They had moved on. I had moved on. I built a decent career in project management, got married, had a daughter named Lily. I didn't need them. But the questions never left me. Why had my father thrown me out? Why had he lied about me? What had I done to deserve 21 years of silence? Then, on a Tuesday morning, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made me answer. "Nathan?" It was Beverly's voice, tight and irritated. "Your father had a stroke. He's asking for you." I sat down slowly, gripping the phone. "Is he okay?" "He's stable," she said, "but he wants to see you. Can you come to Portland General?" "I'll be there." There was a pause. Then Beverly's voice dropped lower. "Nathan, listen. I know it's been a long time, but don't come here trying to cause problems. Your father is fragile right now. He doesn't need stress." I hung up without answering. The warning was clear. She didn't want me there, but my father had asked for me. That had to mean something. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and fear. I walked through the corridors feeling like I was 17 again, holding trash bags and wondering what I had done wrong. Room 412. I stood outside the door for a full minute before I pushed it open. My father lay in the bed, tubes running from his arms, his face pale and sunken. He looked so much older than I remembered. Tyler sat in the corner, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up when I entered, and his expression was blank. No recognition. No warmth. Just a stranger looking at another stranger. Beverly stood by the window. She gave me a tight smile. "Nathan, you came." "He asked for me," I said. My father's eyes opened slowly. He looked at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw something like regret. But then Beverly stepped closer to the bed, and his expression changed. He nodded slightly and closed his eyes again. I stayed for an hour, sitting in uncomfortable silence while Beverly controlled every conversation. She talked about the company, about Tyler's college plans, about everything except the 21 years I had been gone. Tyler barely acknowledged me. He had been only 6 when I left, and clearly he had been told his own version of a story. As I stood to leave, a nurse came in to check my father's vitals. She was older, maybe in her 60s, with kind eyes and a name tag that read Pauline. She glanced at me, then at my father, and frowned slightly. "Oh," she said softly, "you must be the son who was framed." The room went silent. Beverly's head snapped toward the nurse. Tyler looked up from his phone. Even my father's eyes opened. Pauline's face went pale. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I must be thinking of someone else." She hurried out of the room, but the damage was done. I stared at Beverly, whose face had gone tight and angry. What did she mean? I asked quietly. "She's confused," Beverly said quickly. Patients' families all blend together for these nurses. But I knew a lie when I heard one. Over the next few days, I visited the hospital regularly. My father's condition improved slowly, and Beverly seemed annoyed by my constant presence. But I wasn't there for her approval. I was there for answers. One afternoon, Beverly asked me to help organize some paperwork she had brought from house. Medical documents, insurance forms, business records. I sorted through them carefully, and that's when I saw it. A folder labeled Nathan Cooper Trust Fund. I pulled it out and opened it. Inside were references to an account that had been set up by my late mother years before she died. An account meant for my education and future. An account I had never known existed. I read through the pages, my heart pounding. There were notes about transfers, about legal holds, about disputes over access. But the details were vague, and many of the documents seemed to be missing. I looked up to find Beverly standing in the doorway, watching me. "Find something interesting?" she asked coolly. "What is this?" I held up the folder. "Old paperwork," she said. "Your father handled all of that years ago." I didn't believe her, but before I could press further, she took the folder from my hands. "I'll take care of this. You focus on visiting your father." The next day, when I asked to see the folder again, Beverly claimed she had filed it away. When I searched the stack of documents, it was gone. I couldn't let it go. That night, I went to a diner near the hospital to clear my head. As I sat in a booth nursing a cup of coffee, I saw a familiar face walk in. Carl, an older man who had worked as a supervisor at my father's company years ago. He had retired not long after I left home, but I remembered him well. He had always been kind to me. I waved, and Carl's face lit up with recognition. He slid into the booth across from me. "Nathan Cooper," he said, shaking his head. "I heard you were back in town. How's your dad doing?" "Recovering," I said, slowly. We talked for a while, catching up on lost time. Then, almost casually, Carl said something that made my stomach drop. "You know, I never believed what Beverly said about you." I set down my coffee. "What do you mean?" Carl hesitated, then leaned forward. "Back when you left, Beverly came to the office one day. She showed your father some documents, bank records, emails, things like that. She told him you were stealing from the company, that you were planning to sue him and take everything. My hands clenched into fists. That's a lie. I know, Carl said quietly. But she had proof. Or at least, she had something that looked like proof. I stared at Carl, my mind racing. What kind of proof? He sighed. Bank records showing transfers from company accounts to an account in your name. Emails supposedly from you to a lawyer discussing a lawsuit. It all looked official. Your father panicked. He believed her. But I didn't do any of that, I said, my voice shaking. I didn't even have access to company accounts. I was 17. I know, Carl said. That's why I started digging. Quietly. I couldn't say anything at the time because I needed the job, but I saved copies of everything I could find. He pulled a worn folder from his bag and slid it across the table. Inside were printouts of emails, bank statements, and internal company memos. I scanned through them, and my blood ran cold. The emails were written in a style that sort of sounded like me, but the details were wrong. The bank account was real, but I had never opened it, and the memos referenced meetings I had never attended. She forged all of this, I whispered. Carl nodded. She used company computers. She had access to everything, and she was smart enough to make it look convincing. I looked up at him. Why would she do this? Control, Carl said simply. She wanted your father dependent on her, and you were in the way. I spent the next few days processing what Carl had told me. Beverly had framed me. She had convinced my father that I was a thief and a threat, and he had believed her without question. He had thrown me out, ruined my reputation, and let me suffer for 21 years, all because of her lies. But what made it worse was that my father still believed it. In his mind, I was guilty. That's why he had been so cold when I first arrived at the hospital. That's why he hadn't asked where I had been or how I had survived. He thought I deserved it. I could have confronted him right then. I could have shoved the evidence in his face and demanded an apology. But something stopped me. If I came in angry, he would shut down. Beverly would twist the story again, and I would lose any chance of getting through to him. I needed a different approach. So I made a decision. I would stay calm. I would help. I would make myself indispensable. And I would wait for the right moment to reveal the truth. When Beverly asked if I could help manage some of the household finances while my father recovered, I agreed immediately. She looked surprised but pleased. That would be helpful, she said. I've been overwhelmed. I smiled. Of course. I'm happy to help. She had no idea what she had just handed me. Getting access to the financial records was easier than I expected. Beverly was disorganized, and she clearly didn't think I was smart enough to spot anything suspicious. She handed me boxes of files, login credentials, and bank statements without a second thought. I started slowly, going through everything methodically. At first, it all looked normal. Bills, payroll, investments. But then I noticed something odd. Small transfers, usually a few $1,000s at a time, going to an account I didn't recognize. The transfers happened every month like clockwork, and they had been going on for years. I cross-referenced the account number and found it was registered under Beverly's name. Not a joint account with my father. Hers alone. I dug deeper. The transfers were always labeled as consulting fees or administrative expenses, but there were no contracts or invoices to back them up, and the amounts added up to hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. Beverly had been siphoning money from my father's company for years, and she had hidden it so well that no one had noticed. But that wasn't all. Some of the transfers were tied to offshore accounts. Some had been moved through shell companies. It wasn't just theft. It was fraud. And it was illegal. I wanted to confront her immediately. I wanted to drag her into my father's hospital room and force her to admit what she had done. But I knew that wouldn't work. She would deny everything, claim I was lying, and turn my father against me again. I needed to be smarter. So I kept quiet. I made copies of everything I found and stored them in a secure location. And I kept helping Beverly with the finances, pretending I hadn't noticed anything wrong. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. Tyler started talking to me. It started small. He asked me about my job, my life, my daughter. I answered carefully, not wanting to push too hard. But slowly, he opened up. Beverly told me you were dangerous, he said one afternoon. She said you tried to destroy Dad's business, and that's why you left. I looked at him. Do you believe that? He hesitated. I don't know. I was little when you left. I don't really remember you. What if I told you she lied? I asked. Tyler frowned. Why would she lie? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Over the next few weeks, Tyler and I spent more time together. I showed him small pieces of evidence, careful not to overwhelm him. And slowly, he started to doubt Beverly. He started asking questions. And eventually, he offered to help me. With Tyler's help, I gained access to even more documents. He knew where Beverly kept certain files, and he knew her routines. Together, we built a case that was impossible to ignore. But I needed legal advice. I couldn't just walk into my father's hospital room with a stack of papers and hope he believed me. I needed a lawyer who could guide me through this carefully. I found one. Her name was Victoria Stone, and she specialized in fraud and embezzlement cases. I met with her in her office downtown and laid out everything I had discovered. She listened carefully, flipping through the documents. When I finished, she looked up and said, "This is serious. If what you're telling me is true, Beverly could face criminal charges. She could lose everything." "Good," I said. Victoria raised an eyebrow. "But you need to understand something, Nathan. Going after her like this will tear your family apart. Your father will have to face the fact that he was manipulated. Your brother will have to choose sides. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about the 17-year-old boy holding trash bags, begging for an explanation. I thought about the 21 years I had spent wondering what I had done wrong. "Yes," I said, "I'm prepared." As I continued digging, I found something that made everything even worse. Years ago, Beverly had pressured my sick mother into signing documents just weeks before she died. My mother had been weak, medicated, and barely coherent. But Beverly had convinced her to sign papers transferring control of certain assets into a trust that Beverly managed. My mother probably hadn't even understood what she was signing. And my father, overwhelmed with grief, had never questioned it. I felt sick. Beverly hadn't just stolen from my father. She had manipulated my dying mother, and she had built her entire empire on lies. I added the documents to my growing file. The evidence was overwhelming, but I still needed my father to see it, and that meant waiting for the right moment. That moment came sooner than I expected. One afternoon, while helping my father with physical therapy, he started talking about the past. He mentioned an argument he'd had with Beverly years ago, something about finances. He couldn't remember the details, but he remembered being angry. "I think I accused her of hiding something," he said slowly. But she explained it. I trusted her. I looked at him carefully. "What if you were right the first time?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "What if she was hiding something?" For the first time, I saw doubt in his eyes. "Nathan, what are you talking about?" "I think you should see some old records," I said. "Would you be willing to look at them?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Bring them tomorrow." That night, I compiled everything into a single folder. The forged emails, the fake bank records, the illegal transfers, the documents my mother had signed, witness statements from Carl and others who had worked at the company. It was all there, organized and clear. The next morning, I brought the folder to the hospital. But before I could show it to my father, Beverly noticed my laptop sitting on the chair. Her eyes narrowed. "What are you working on?" she asked. "Just some financial reports," I said casually. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her face. That night, she made her move. She called Tyler and my father together and accused me of trying to manipulate them. She claimed I was digging through private documents, spreading lies, and trying to turn the family against her. "He's doing exactly what I warned you about 21 years ago," she said, her voice trembling with false emotion. "He's trying to destroy this family." I stood there, calm and silent. I had expected this. I had prepared for this. Tyler looked at her, then at me. "What lies is she talking about, Nathan?" "Ask her about the offshore accounts," I said quietly. "Ask her about the consulting fees that don't exist. Ask her about the documents Mom signed before she died." Beverly's face went pale. My father's eyes widened. Beverly tried to recover. She said I was making things up, that I had always been unstable, that I couldn't be trusted. But for the first time, my father didn't immediately believe her. "Show me," he said, looking at me. I handed him the folder. He read through it slowly, his face growing darker with each page. Tyler read over his shoulder, his jaw tightening. When my father finished, he looked up at Beverly. "Explain this." "It's all fake," she said desperately. "He forged those documents. He's trying to frame me." "Carl saved copies of the original emails," I said, "from the company server. They're time-stamped, and the bank records are real. I've had them verified." Beverly's composure cracked. "You can't prove anything," she said, her voice rising. "Actually, I can," I said, and then I told him about the lawyer, about the auditors I had quietly contacted, about the investigation that was already underway. Beverly stared at me, her face a mask of shock and fury. For the first time, she had no response. My father set down the folder, his hands shaking. "Get out," he said to her. "What?" Beverly's voice was barely a whisper. "Get out of this room. Now." She tried to argue, but Tyler stood and opened the door. She left, her face twisted with rage. After she was gone, my father sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Nathan." I didn't know what to say. I had waited 21 years for those words, but now that I had them, they fell hollow. Sorry didn't give me back the years I had lost. Sorry didn't erase the pain. But it was a start. "Why did you believe her?" I asked. "She was convincing," he said, "and I was scared. I had just lost your mother. I was overwhelmed. When Beverly showed me those documents, I panicked. I thought you were going to destroy everything I had built. So you threw me out." "Yes," he whispered, "and I was wrong. I should have talked to you. I should have investigated. I should have trusted you." He reached for my hand, and after a moment, I let him take it. "I want to make this right," he said. "I don't know how, but I want to try." "Then help me finish this," I said. The next few days were a whirlwind. The auditors Beverly thought I had contacted became real. My lawyer filed formal complaints with the authorities. The company's board of directors was notified, and an emergency meeting was called. Beverly tried to fight back. She hired her own lawyers and threatened to countersue. She claimed I was the one who had stolen money, that I had forged evidence, that this was all a vendetta, but the evidence was too strong. The offshore accounts were traced back to her. The timestamps on the forged emails matched her work computer. And Carl's testimony, along with statements from other former employees, painted a clear picture of her manipulation. At the board meeting, I presented everything. My father sat beside me, pale but resolute. Tyler was there too, watching silently. When I finished, the room was silent. Then one of the board members spoke. "This is fraud. This is embezzlement. We have no choice but to remove Beverly from all positions within the company and cooperate fully with the criminal investigation." Beverly stood, her face red. "You can't do this. I built this company alongside him. You deserve nothing," my father interrupted, his voice stronger than I had heard it in weeks. "You lied to me. You stole from me. And you destroyed my relationship with my son. You're done." The board voted unanimously. Beverly was removed. The authorities moved quickly after that. Beverly was formally charged with fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. The amounts involved were significant enough that she faced serious prison time. She tried to make deals, offering to return the money in exchange for reduced charges. But my lawyer advised against it. "She needs to face the full consequences," Victoria said. "Anything less send the wrong message." I agreed. In the weeks that followed, more details emerged. Beverly had been planning this from the beginning. She had targeted my father deliberately, knowing he was vulnerable after my mother's death. She had isolated him from friends and family, controlled his access to information, and slowly taken over every aspect of his life. And when I had become old enough to potentially see through her lies, she had eliminated me. It was calculated. It was ruthless, and it had almost worked, but not quite. One afternoon, my father asked to speak with me privately. We sat in his study, surrounded by the books and awards that represented his life's work. "I want to make a public apology," he said. "To you, to everyone who believed the lies about you. You deserve that." I thought about it. Part of me wanted him to shout it from the rooftops, to make sure everyone knew the truth. But another part of me just wanted to move forward. "Do what you think is right," I said. He organized a press conference. Standing at a podium with Tyler and me beside him, he told the whole story. He admitted he had been manipulated. He admitted he had failed as a father, and he apologized publicly for the pain he had caused. The response was overwhelming. Former classmates reached out to apologize for believing the rumors. Relatives who had shunned me suddenly wanted to reconnect. The vindication felt good, but it also felt strange. Where were these people 21 years ago when I needed them? After the press conference, my father turned to me. "I want you to take a leadership role in the company," he said. "It's your birthright. It always was." I looked at him for a long time. "I'll think about it." I didn't give him an answer right away. I needed time to process everything. I needed to decide what I really wanted. My wife supported whatever choice I made. "You've earned the right to take what's yours," she said. "But you've also earned the right to walk away." I thought about my daughter, Lily. I thought about the life I had built on my own. I thought about the boy with the trash bags and the man I had become. Finally, I made my decision. I would accept a strategic role in the company, not because I wanted revenge or power, but because it was fair. The company had been built with my mother's money, too. I had a right to be part of it, but I also set boundaries. I would work on my terms, balance it with my existing career, and never let it consume my life the way it had consumed my father's. And I insisted on one more thing. The trust fund my mother had set up for me, the one Beverly had tried to hide, would be restored. Not for me, but for Lily. She deserved the opportunities one had been denied. My father agreed to everything. Beverly's trial was brief. The evidence was overwhelming, and her lawyers advised her to plead guilty. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison and ordered to repay everything she had stolen. On the day of sentencing, I sat in the courtroom and watched her stand before the judge. She looked small and defeated, nothing like the confident woman who had smirked at me 21 years ago. As she was led away, she looked back at me one last time. I don't know what she expected to see. Triumph? Anger? But I felt nothing. She had taken so much from me, but I had taken it all back. And now she would face the consequences of her choices. Afterward, Tyler and I went to lunch. We talked about the future, about rebuilding our relationship, about moving forward. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner," he said. "You were a kid," I said. "You didn't know." "Still," he said, "I should have asked questions." I smiled. "You're asking them now. That's what matters." Over the next few years, my relationship with my father slowly improved. It wasn't easy. There were arguments and setbacks and moments when I wondered if it was worth it. But we kept trying. He met Lily for the first time and cried when she called him Grandpa. He attended her school events and birthday parties. He became the grandfather I had never imagined he could be. Tyler and I grew close, too. He started working at the company, and we made a good team. We updated policies, improved transparency, and made sure nothing like Beverly's fraud could ever happen again. My mother's legacy was restored. Her name was added to company documents, and a scholarship fund was created in her honor. It felt right. As for me, I found a balance. I worked. I spent time with my family. I built a life that was mine, not defined by what had been taken from me. People sometimes ask me if I forgive my father. The truth is, I don't know. Forgiveness is complicated. He made terrible choices that hurt me deeply, but he also admitted his mistakes and worked to make things right. Maybe forgiveness isn't a single moment. Maybe it's a process, something you work toward over time. Maybe it's okay to still feel angry sometimes, even while you're healing. What I do know is that I'm no longer that 17-year-old boy with trash bags and no answers. I'm a man who fought for the truth and won. A man who refused to be erased. Beverly lives quietly now, released early for good behavior. She's banned from holding any corporate positions and lives under the weight of her disgrace. I hear about her occasionally through mutual acquaintances, but I don't think about her much. She's irrelevant to my life now. Years later, I sat on my porch watching Lily play in the yard. My wife brought me a cup of coffee and sat beside me. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Going back? Fighting for the truth?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "I needed to know, and I needed them to know. You could have just walked away." "I could have," I said, "but then I would have spent the rest of my life wondering. This way, I have answers. I have closure. I have my voice back.